Struggling human discovers alien girl tied to a pillar labeled "Take as you please." Kyle Mercer's boots scraped against the cracked pavement of Nexus District, the alien metropolis's most dangerous sector. Sweat trickled down his neck despite the evening chill, his muscular frame tense as he clutched the small package hidden beneath his worn leather jacket. Another day, another illegal delivery. The only work a human could reliably find in this god-forsaken corner of the galaxy. "Final warning, Mercer," his landlord's message had blared that morning. 3 days to pay or you're out on your ass." The memory made his jaw clench. 3 years on this planet, running packages for whoever paid, and he was still one missed payment from homelessness. The bluish tattoos covering his arms, remnants of his military past, seemed to pulse with his frustration. "Just this job," he muttered to himself. "One big score and I can breathe again." The Vexian crime lord who'd hired him had promised triple the usual rate for this delivery. Triple meant food for weeks, meant keeping his cramped apartment, meant survival. All he had to do was navigate the labyrinth of Nexus District's back alleys without getting robbed, arrested, or killed. Simple. Kyle ducked into a narrow passage between towering structures, avoiding the main thoroughfares where planetary security forces patrolled. The alien architecture loomed overhead, all sharp angles and impossible geometries that made human eyes water. This wasn't his world, never would be. A group of Kreks, reptilian locals with nasty tempers, blocked the next intersection. Kyle slipped behind a waste container, waiting for them to move on. The package in his jacket felt impossibly heavy. He didn't know what was inside, and he didn't want to know. That was courier rule number 1. When the Kreks finally departed, Kyle continued through the maze of alleys, each turn bringing him closer to his destination. The rendezvous point was an abandoned warehouse in the industrial sector. Classic drop location, minimal witnesses. He was cutting through an empty lot when he saw it, or rather, her. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks. The lot appeared deserted except for a concrete pillar standing alone near its center. But as he drew closer, he realized someone was bound to it. A female figure slumped forward, secured with crude metallic restraints. Her skin was a soft blue that seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light. Her silvery hair hung in tangled strands, partially obscuring her face. She wore only a tattered black miniskirt, her upper body exposed to the elements. "What the hell?" Kyle breathed, momentarily forgetting his delivery. As he approached, he noticed the crude sign hanging from her neck. Blocky alien script dominated the top, but someone had scrawled a translation beneath it. "Take as you please." Kyle's stomach turned. He'd seen plenty of the galaxy's cruelty, but this was something else. The alien girl stirred slightly, raising her head. Her eyes, dark as space itself, widened in fear at the sight of him. Fresh bruises marred her delicate blue skin, and dried blood crusted around several cuts on her arms and torso. "Hey, it's okay," Kyle said softly, raising his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." She flinched away, pressing herself against the pillar. Up close, Kyle could see she was humanoid, but definitely not human. Her ears tapered to slight points, and faint luminescent patterns traced her skin like natural bioluminescence. Kyle glanced around. The lot remained deserted, but that could change any second. He had a job to finish, a payment to collect. This wasn't his problem, but as the alien girl trembled before him, something in Kyle's chest tightened. He thought of all the times he'd looked away, all the suffering he'd ignored to survive in this hellhole. "Fuck it," he muttered, reaching for the restraints. They were simple mechanical locks, no biometrics or electronic security. Within moments, he had them open. The girl collapsed forward as soon as she was free, too weak to stand. Kyle caught her, surprised by how light she felt in his arms. He shrugged out of his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders, covering her exposed skin. The package would have to wait a few minutes. "What did they do to you?" he asked quietly, though he doubted she understood his language. To his surprise, she responded in halting standard. "Punishment, unauthorized contact, exile." Her voice was barely audible, each word seemingly painful to form. "Who did this to you?" Kyle pressed, anger building inside him. "My clan," she whispered, before her eyes rolled back and she slumped unconscious against him. Kyle cursed under his breath. The package in his inner pocket seemed to burn against his chest, a reminder of his responsibilities. But he couldn't leave her here, not like this. Decision made, Kyle lifted the alien girl into his arms. The delivery would have to wait. Some things were more important than money, even if it meant losing everything. Kyle's apartment was barely large enough for one person, let alone two. The single room contained only the essentials: a narrow bed, a cooking unit, and a small bathroom partitioned by a thin wall. The space felt even more cramped as Kyle gently laid the unconscious alien girl on his bed. "What the hell am I doing?" he muttered, running a hand through his short blonde hair. The delivery deadline was approaching, and his client wasn't known for patience. But the girl's condition demanded attention first. Kyle dampened a cloth and carefully began cleaning the dirt and dried blood from her blue skin. Her breathing remained shallow but steady. As he worked, Kyle studied her features more closely. Despite her alien appearance, there was something strikingly beautiful about her. The delicate curve of her jaw, the subtle luminescent patterns that pulsed beneath her skin like distant stars. An hour later, her eyes fluttered open, those dark cosmic orbs fixed on him with immediate fear. "Easy," Kyle said softly, backing away to give her space. "You're safe here." She sat up quickly, wincing at the movement, and pulled his jacket tighter around her shoulders. Her gaze darted around the small apartment before returning to him. "Why?" she asked, her voice stronger than before, but still hesitant. Kyle shrugged. "Couldn't just leave you there." "Others did," she replied simply. The statement hung between them, heavy with implication. Kyle felt a surge of anger at the thought of how many had walked past her suffering. "I'm Kyle," he said, changing the subject. "What's your name?" She hesitated before answering. "Naya." "Naya," he repeated, testing the name. "Are you hungry?" Her eyes widened slightly at the question, as if surprised by the consideration. She nodded. Kyle prepared a simple meal from his meager supplies: synthetic protein cubes and nutrient paste, standard fare for the lower districts. Naya ate cautiously at first, then with increasing eagerness. "Your clan," Kyle ventured as she finished eating. "Why would they do that to you?" Naya's luminescent patterns dimmed noticeably. "I spoke with a male from another lineage without proper arrangements. It is forbidden." "You were punished for talking to someone?" Kyle asked incredulously. "More than talking," Naya admitted, her skin flushing a deeper blue. "We touched hands. Among my people, this is intimate." Kyle struggled to comprehend a culture where hand-holding warranted such brutal punishment. "And they exiled you for that?" "The Valar do not tolerate impurity," she explained. "I am now Kirath, without clan, without protection. Anyone may use me as they wish." Her voice broke on the last words. "Not here," Kyle said firmly. "Not while I'm around." Naya looked up at him, her cosmic eyes searching his face. "Why would you protect me? I am nothing to you." "Because it's the right thing to do," Kyle answered, though even as he said it, he recognized something deeper stirring within him, an unexpected connection to this alien woman. The moment was interrupted by his comm unit beeping insistently. Kyle cursed under his breath. "I need to make a call," he said, stepping into the bathroom for privacy. The holographic image of Drex, his Vexian employer, appeared immediately. 6 eyes narrowed in displeasure. "Where's my package, Mercer?" the crime lord growled. "There was a complication," Kyle replied, keeping his voice steady. "I need a few more hours." "You have one," Drex hissed. "After that, I send collectors." "Understand." The transmission cut before Kyle could respond. He leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. 1 hour to complete the delivery or face consequences that would make his landlord's threats seem trivial. When Kyle emerged, he found Naya standing by the apartment's single window, gazing out at the neon-lit district below. His jacket had slipped slightly from her shoulders, revealing the elegant curve of her back and the faint patterns that traced her spine. "I must go," he said reluctantly. "I have a job to finish." Naya turned to face him. "The package you carried, it is important?" "Important enough to keep me alive," Kyle admitted. "I'll be back soon." "You'll be safe here." As he moved to retrieve the package from his jacket, Naya stepped closer. The proximity sent an unexpected jolt through him, a current of awareness that caught him off guard. "You risk much for a stranger," she said softly. Her hand reached up hesitantly, hovering near his face before gently touching his cheek. Kyle felt a strange, tingling sensation where her fingers made contact. The luminescent patterns on her skin brightened, pulsing in rhythm with what he somehow knew was her heartbeat. "Among my people," Naya whispered, "a life debt is sacred. You saved me. I am bound to you now." The intensity in her dark eyes made Kyle's breath catch. There was gratitude there, yes, but something else too. A connection forming between them that transcended their different species. "I don't want you bound to anything," Kyle said, his voice rougher than intended. "You're free now." "Freedom is not the absence of bonds," Naya replied, "but choosing which bonds to honor." Her face was inches from his now, her alien features somehow both exotic and familiar. Kyle felt drawn to her in a way he couldn't explain, a pull that went beyond physical attraction to something almost primal. With visible reluctance, he stepped back. "I have to go. 1 hour, then I'll return." As Kyle headed for the door, package secured, he felt Naya's eyes following him. Whatever was happening between them would have to wait. First, he needed to ensure they both lived through the night. The delivery had gone smoothly, almost too smoothly. Drex had merely grunted his approval, tossed Kyle his payment, and dismissed him without the usual threats. Something felt off, but Kyle wasn't about to question his good fortune. All that mattered was getting back to Naya. The neon signs of the Nexus District cast multicolored shadows across the cracked pavement as Kyle hurried through the back alleys. Night had fully descended, bringing with it the district's most dangerous denizens. He kept one hand on the blaster hidden beneath his shirt, a military relic from his past life, illegal for humans to possess on this planet. When Kyle finally reached his apartment building, he took the stairs 2 at a time. The payment chip in his pocket felt reassuringly heavy, enough to cover his rent and maybe even buy some proper food for Naya. "Naya," he called as he entered the apartment. "I'm back." No response. Kyle's hand instinctively moved toward his blaster as he scanned the small room. The lights were dimmed, but he could make out a form on the bed. Relief washed over him, followed immediately by concern. Naya lay curled in a fetal position, shivering violently despite the room's warmth. Her luminescent patterns flickered erratically, and her blue skin had taken on an ashen hue. "Naya!" Kyle rushed to her side, placing a hand on her forehead. Her skin burned against his palm. "What's wrong?" Her eyes opened, those cosmic depths now clouded with pain. "Kyle," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Something inside, burning." Kyle gently examined her, noting with alarm that the cuts on her arms had turned an angry purple, with dark lines spreading outward from them. Infection, and a bad one. "Hang on," he said, trying to keep the panic from his voice. "I'm going to get help." Naya's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "No healers," she gasped. "They'll report. Kirath." "You need medicine," Kyle insisted. "These wounds are infected." "Via biology." "Different," she managed between labored breaths. "Your medicines might kill." Kyle cursed under his breath. She was right. Human antibiotics could be lethal to alien physiologies. He needed someone who understood xenobiology, someone who wouldn't ask questions. "Doc Watkins," he muttered. The name came to him suddenly. A human doctor who ran an illegal clinic in the lower levels, catering to those who couldn't access official medical channels. Kyle had transported supplies to him once or twice. "I know someone who can help," he told Naya. "Can you walk?" She tried to sit up but collapsed back with a whimper. The luminescent patterns on her skin were growing dimmer by the minute. "I'll carry you," Kyle decided, wrapping her in a blanket before lifting her into his arms. Her head rested against his chest as he carried her through the darkened corridors of the building and out into the night. Despite her fever, Kyle felt an undeniable awareness of her body against his, a connection that transcended their current crisis. "Stay with me," he murmured as her eyes fluttered closed. The journey to Doc Watkins' clinic took them deeper into the district's underbelly. Kyle kept to the shadows, avoiding the main thoroughfares where planetary security might spot them. Naya's condition deteriorated with each passing minute, her breathing becoming more labored. Finally, they reached an unmarked door in a forgotten corner of the industrial sector. Kyle kicked it 3 times in rapid succession, then twice more, the signal he remembered from his delivery days. After a tense moment, The door slid open to reveal a grizzled human man with a cybernetic eye that whirred softly as it focused. "Mercer?" Doc Watkins' surprise was evident. "What the—" "She needs help," Kyle interrupted, pushing past him into the dimly lit clinic. "Infection, I think." Watkins' cybernetic eye scanned Naya as Kyle laid her on an examination table. "Vir female," the doctor noted clinically. "Rare to see one outside their enclaves." "What happened?" "Found her tied to a pillar in the Nexus district," Kyle explained, omitting the details of her punishment. "She's been exiled by her clan." Watkins whistled low. "Kirath, then. Nasty business, that." He began examining the infected wounds. These cuts were deliberate, ritual markings. The Vir don't exile their own without making sure everyone knows it. The doctor moved with practiced efficiency, attaching monitoring devices and preparing injections. "Lucky you brought her when you did." Another few hours and she'd be beyond help. "Can you treat her?" Kyle asked, unable to mask his concern. "I've worked on Vir before," Watkins replied. "Not many, mind you. They keep to themselves, but enough to know their biology." He administered an injection directly into Naya's neck. "This should neutralize the toxins in her system." "Toxins?" Kyle repeated. "I thought it was an infection." Watkins' expression darkened. "The cuts were laced with a slow-acting poison, standard practice for Kirath punishment. Make sure the exile suffers before the end." Kyle felt a surge of anger. "They meant for her to die?" "Eventually," Watkins confirmed grimly, "after sufficient humiliation." As the doctor continued his treatment, Kyle remained by Naya's side, holding her hand. Her skin felt cooler now, the fever beginning to subside. The luminescent patterns gradually stabilized, pulsing in a steady rhythm that Kyle found strangely comforting. "Your markings," Naya murmured suddenly, her eyes half open as she traced a finger along one of the blue tattoos on Kyle's arm. "They tell your story." "Something like that," Kyle replied softly. "Each one marks a battle I survived." Her fingers continued their exploration, sending pleasant shivers across his skin. "Among my people, only warriors bear such marks." "I was a soldier once," Kyle admitted. "A lifetime ago." Naya's cosmic eyes studied him with newfound appreciation. "A warrior who shows mercy," she whispered. "My people would not understand such contradiction." From across the room, Doc Watkins cleared his throat. "She'll need to rest here tonight. The antitoxin needs time to work." Kyle nodded but made no move to leave Naya's side. Her hand remained entwined with his, the simple contact conveying more than words could express. "I'll stay with her," he said, his decision already made. As Watkins retreated to another room, Naya's luminescent patterns brightened, pulsing in what Kyle somehow recognized as contentment. The connection between them deepened with each shared breath, each moment of silent understanding. In the quiet of the clinic, surrounded by the hum of medical equipment, Kyle realized he'd crossed a threshold. This alien woman with her cosmic eyes and star-flecked skin had awakened something within him, something he'd thought long dead after years of survival in this harsh world. And as Naya's gaze met his, he knew she felt it too. Kyle awoke to a gentle pressure against his chest. He'd fallen asleep in the chair beside Naya's bed, his hands still intertwined with hers. Sometime during the night, she had shifted closer, her head now resting against him, her silvery hair splayed across his arm. The clinic's dim emergency lighting cast a soft glow over her blue skin, highlighting the luminescent patterns that now pulsed with a steady, healthy rhythm. The antitoxin had worked, her fever had broken, and the infected wounds had begun to heal. Kyle carefully brushed a strand of hair from her face, marveling at how peaceful she looked in sleep. The vulnerability she'd shown when tied to that pillar was gone, replaced by a serene strength that drew him in. As if sensing his gaze, Naya's cosmic eyes fluttered open. For a moment, confusion clouded her features before recognition dawned. "You stayed," she whispered, her voice no longer strained by pain. "Of course I did," Kyle replied softly. Their faces were inches apart, her breath warm against his skin. The luminescent patterns on her body brightened, pulsing more rapidly in what Kyle now recognized as a physical manifestation of emotion. "In my culture," Naya said, her eyes never leaving his, "to stay by the side of the sick is an act of deep devotion. It's just basic decency where I come from." Kyle responded with a small smile. Naya's hand reached up to trace the contours of his face. "Your species fascinates me," she murmured. "So contradictory, capable of such violence, yet such tenderness." Her touch sent pleasant shivers across Kyle's skin. The connection between them had grown stronger through the night, evolving into something neither had anticipated. "How are you feeling?" he asked, trying to maintain focus despite the distracting sensation of her fingers against his jaw. "Renewed," she answered. Her luminescent patterns flared briefly, casting dancing lights across the clinic walls. "Your doctor has skilled hands." The mention of Doc Watkins brought Kyle back to reality. Speaking of which, where is he? As if summoned by the question, the door to the back room slid open. Doc Watkins entered, his cybernetic eye whirring as it adjusted to the dim light. His expression was grim. "You need to leave," he said without preamble. "Now." Kyle straightened, instantly alert. "What's wrong?" Watkins glanced nervously at the clinic's entrance. "Got a transmission an hour ago. Via Enforcement Division. They're paying handsomely for information on Kirath sightings." "You wouldn't," Kyle began, his hand instinctively moving toward his concealed blaster. "I didn't," Watkins cut him off sharply, "but I'm not the only one who knows you brought her here. My assistant saw you arrive." "Tren?" Kyle asked, remembering the sullen Krex who sometimes helped at the clinic. Watkins nodded grimly. "Found him sending a transmission. Locked him in the supply closet, but damage is done. They'll be here by dawn." Kyle helped Naya to her feet. She swayed slightly but remained standing, her strength returning. "We need clothes for her," Kyle said, noting that Naya was still wrapped only in the blanket he'd brought her in. Watkins disappeared briefly into another room, returning with a simple jumpsuit. "Best I can do. It's human-sized, but it'll have to work." As Naya dressed behind a privacy screen, Watkins pulled Kyle aside. "There's a human settlement in the old mining district," he said in a low voice, "outside alien jurisdiction. They might take you in." "The Enclave?" Kyle had heard rumors of the place, a community of human expatriates who'd carved out their own territory in the abandoned mines. "Ask for Captain Chapman," Watkins instructed, pressing a small data chip into Kyle's palm. "Give him this. Tell him I sent you." Naya emerged from behind the screen, the oversized jumpsuit hanging loosely on her slender frame. Despite the ill-fitting clothes, she carried herself with a natural grace that caught Kyle's attention. "You look better," he said, offering an encouraging smile. "I feel stronger," she replied, her cosmic eyes meeting his with newfound intensity. The luminescent patterns on her exposed skin pulsed in a rhythm that somehow conveyed gratitude and something deeper, a connection that transcended their brief acquaintance. Watkins handed Kyle a small medical kit. "Antitoxin injections. She'll need one more dose in 12 hours. The doctor led them to a service exit at the back of the clinic. "The mining district is northeast, about 10 kilometers. Stay off the main roads." Kyle clasped the doctor's hand. "I owe you." "Just don't get caught," Watkins replied gruffly. "I've got enough problems." As they slipped out into the pre-dawn darkness, Kyle felt Naya's hand find his. The simple contact sent a surge of warmth through him, a reminder of the unexpected bond forming between them. They moved swiftly through the industrial sector, keeping to the shadows. The city was quietest just before dawn. Even the nocturnal species had retreated to their dwellings, and the day dwellers had yet to emerge. "Your doctor risked much to help me," Naya observed as they navigated a narrow alleyway. "Why would one human endanger himself for another's problem?" "That's just how we are," Kyle replied. "At our best, anyway." Naya's luminescent patterns flickered thoughtfully. "My people would never understand such behavior. The clan is everything. The individual, nothing." "Sounds lonely," Kyle commented. "It was," she admitted softly. "I never realized how lonely until now." They paused at an intersection, checking for patrols before continuing. The physical exertion had brought a deeper blue flush to Naya's cheeks, making her even more striking in the dim light. "We should rest soon," Kyle suggested, noting her slightly labored breathing. "You're still recovering." "I am stronger than I appear," Naya countered, her cosmic eyes flashing with determination. "Your concern is pleasing, but unnecessary." Despite her words, Kyle could sense her fatigue. They needed shelter, somewhere to rest before continuing to the Enclave. As they rounded a corner, Naya suddenly pressed against him, pushing them both into a recessed doorway. Her body aligned perfectly with his, the contact sending an electric current through Kyle's veins. "Patrol," she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. Through the narrow gap between buildings, Kyle spotted a VR enforcement vehicle hovering silently down the main thoroughfare. Its searchlights swept methodically across the storefronts. In the confined space of the doorway, Kyle became acutely aware of every point where Naya's body touched his. The gentle pressure of her chest against his, the warmth of her breath on his neck, the subtle trembling of her hands as they gripped his arms. Her luminescent patterns pulsed rapidly, matching the accelerated beating of her heart. The patterns seemed to respond to his proximity, growing brighter wherever their bodies connected. "Your heart rate has increased," Naya observed in a whisper, her cosmic eyes studying his face with curious intensity. "Are you afraid?" "Not exactly," Kyle admitted, his voice rougher than intended. Understanding dawned in her expression. The luminescent patterns across her skin flared briefly, casting a soft blue glow over both their faces. "Physical attraction transcends species, it seems," she murmured, a hint of wonder in her voice. The patrol vehicle moved on, but neither of them pulled away immediately. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibility. "We should keep moving," Kyle finally said, though his body protested the suggestion. Naya nodded, stepping back reluctantly. The Enclave awaits. As they continued their journey through the awakening city, the connection between them deepened with each shared glance, each accidental touch. Whatever lay ahead at the human settlement, Kyle knew that nothing between them would be the same again. The mining district loomed before them, a sprawling complex of abandoned excavation sites and processing facilities carved into the side of a massive ridge. Dawn had broken, casting long shadows across the rusted machinery and crumbling infrastructure. "We're close," Kyle said, consulting the small nav unit Watkins had included with their supplies. "The Enclave should be just beyond that ridge." Naya studied the desolate landscape with her cosmic eyes. "Your people choose to live here? Voluntarily?" "Freedom has its price," Kyle replied. "Better to rule in hell than serve in heaven, as one of our old poets said." "Curious philosophy," Naya mused, her luminescent patterns pulsing thoughtfully. "My people believe security is worth any sacrifice of freedom." "Maybe that's why you're here with me instead of there with them," Kyle observed with a slight smile. Their journey through the night had strengthened their connection. Each shared danger, each moment of protection and care had built something neither could easily define, but both increasingly valued. As they approached the ridge, Kyle noticed movement among the rocks, the glint of rifle scopes catching the morning sun. "Stop," he said quietly, placing a protective hand on Naya's arm. "We're being watched." "Identify yourselves," a voice called out from a concealed position. Kyle raised his hand slowly. "Kyle Mercer, Doc Watkins sent us. We're looking for Captain Chapman." A tense silence followed before a figure emerged from behind a rusted ore processor. A tall woman with dark skin and close-cropped gray hair, her weathered face marked by a jagged scar running from temple to jaw. "I'm Chapman," she said, her voice carrying the unmistakable authority of command. Her sharp eyes assessed them quickly, lingering on Naya's blue skin and luminescent patterns. "Watkins didn't mention you'd be bringing a buyer." "She needs sanctuary," Kyle explained, producing the data chip Watkins had given him. "She's Kirath, exiled from her clan." Chapman took the chip, inserting it into a wrist-mounted reader. Her expression remained impassive as she reviewed its contents. "Watkins vouches for you," she finally said. "That counts for something. But bringing her here," she gestured toward Naya, "that's going to cause problems." "We have nowhere else to go," Kyle insisted. "The VR Enforcement Division is hunting her." Chapman sighed, holstering her weapon. "Follow me. The council will decide." They were led through a cleverly disguised entrance in the ridge face, revealing a vast network of tunnels and caverns beyond. The mining complex had been transformed into a thriving community. Living quarters carved from stone, hydroponics gardens bathed in artificial sunlight, and makeshift markets where humans traded goods and services. Naya stared in wonder. "I had no idea so many humans lived outside the regulated zones." "Over 300 of us now," Chapman explained with a hint of pride. "Started with just a dozen ex-military types who refused to live under alien rule. Now we've got engineers, doctors, farmers, everything needed for a self-sufficient colony. As they walked through the settlement, Kyle noticed the stares and whispers their presence generated. Humans stopped their activities to watch them pass, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. "They fear me," Naya observed quietly. "They fear what your people might do if they find you here," Kyle corrected. Chapman led them to a large chamber where 5 individuals, 3 men and 2 women, sat at a semicircular table. The council, Kyle presumed. Captain Chapman, a gray-bearded man at the center, addressed her. "Explain this." "Watkins sent them," Chapman replied, handing over the data chip. "The Veyor is Kirath. They're both being hunted." The council members exchanged glances as they reviewed the information. Their deliberation was conducted in hushed tones, but Kyle caught fragments. Risk, precedent, retaliation. Finally, the bearded man addressed them directly. "I'm Chairman Donovan. This council governs the Enclave. Your presence here presents complications." "We just need temporary sanctuary," Kyle explained. "A few days to rest and plan our next move." "The human can stay," a stern-faced woman declared. "The Vyar must go. We can't risk Vyar forces discovering our location." Naya stepped forward, her luminescent patterns pulsing with determination. "I understand your concerns. My presence endangers you. I will leave." "No," Kyle interjected firmly. "We stay together." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some members insisted on the danger Naya represented, while others argued for human compassion. The debate grew heated until Donovan raised his hand for silence. "This requires further consideration," he announced. "Until we decide, you'll both remain under guard in the visitor quarters." As they were escorted to a small chamber carved from the rock, Kyle felt Naya's hand slip into his. The simple gesture conveyed everything words couldn't: gratitude, fear, and something deeper neither had yet named. Their assigned quarters were sparse but clean, a single room with basic amenities and a narrow bed. The guards stationed outside made their status clear. Not quite prisoners, not quite guests. "You shouldn't have done that," Naya said once they were alone. "Refuse to stay without me." "I wasn't about to abandon you," Kyle replied, his voice rough with emotion. Naya moved closer, her cosmic eyes searching his face. "In my culture, such loyalty is reserved only for clan. Yet you show it to a stranger, an alien." "You're not a stranger anymore," Kyle said softly. The luminescent patterns on her skin brightened, pulsing in rhythm with her accelerated heartbeat. In the dim light of their quarters, she seemed to glow from within, her blue skin casting ethereal shadows across the stone walls. "Among my people," Naya whispered, "physical intimacy is permitted only after formal bonding ceremonies. It is why my unauthorized touch was punished so severely." Kyle remained still as she raised a hand to his face, her fingers tracing the contours of his jaw with delicate precision. "But I am Kirath now," she continued, her voice taking on a husky quality that sent shivers down Kyle's spine. "No longer bound by those laws." The air between them seemed to crackle with electricity as Naya leaned closer, her luminescent patterns flaring brightly. "Your human compassion saved me," she murmured. "Your strength protected me. Your touch." Her fingers trailed down his neck to rest against his chest, directly over his heart. "Your touch awakened something I never knew existed." Kyle's restraint finally broke. He pulled her against him, one hand cradling the back of her head as their lips met. The contact sent a surge of warmth through his entire body, intensified by the soft glow that emanated from Naya's skin wherever they touched. Her luminescent patterns responded to his caress, brightening and dimming in waves that somehow communicated her pleasure more eloquently than words. Each touch, each kiss deepened their connection, transcending the physical to forge something neither had experienced before. In the sanctuary of their stone chamber, surrounded by humans who might reject them and aliens who would punish them, Kyle and Naya found a different kind of freedom, one that defied the boundaries of species and culture. As they explored this newfound intimacy, the luminescent patterns on Naya's skin created a private constellation that mapped their journey together, from a chance encounter at a punishment pillar to something neither could have imagined possible. Kyle awoke to the sound of voices outside their quarters. Naya lay curled against him, her luminescent patterns pulsing softly in sleep. casting a gentle blue glow across their shared bed. The events of the previous night had changed something fundamental between them, a bond forged through shared vulnerability and passion that transcended their different species. Carefully, he disentangled himself and moved to the door, pressing his ear against the cool stone. "Arrived an hour ago," a voice he recognized as Captain Chapman was saying. "Official diplomatic envoy from Earth Central." "Terrible timing," came Chairman Donovan's gruff response. "With the Vyar girl here." "That's just it," Chapman interrupted. "They're here specifically to discuss human-Vyar relations, some kind of treaty negotiation." Kyle's stomach tightened. He returned to the bed, gently shaking Naya awake. Her cosmic eyes opened immediately, focusing on his face with a warmth that made his chest ache. "Something's happening," he told her quietly. "Earth diplomats have arrived." Naya sat up, the luminescent patterns on her skin brightening with alertness. "This complicates matters," she observed, her voice still husky from sleep. Before Kyle could respond, a sharp knock came at their door. Captain Chapman entered without waiting for permission, her expression tense. "Council's made their decision," she announced. "You're both invited to join this morning's session." Her eyes lingered briefly on their disheveled appearance, one eyebrow raising slightly. "Might want to make yourselves presentable first." After Chapman departed, Kyle and Naya prepared themselves in silence, though the air between them crackled with unspoken emotion. Occasionally their hands would brush, or their eyes would meet, and the luminescent patterns on Naya's skin would flare in response. "Among my people," she finally said as Kyle helped adjust her borrowed clothing, "what we shared would create an unbreakable bond." Kyle's hands stilled on her shoulders. "And among mine," he replied softly, "it often does the same." The moment was interrupted by another knock, their escort to the council chamber. The atmosphere in the chamber had transformed overnight. Where before there had been suspicion and debate, now there was a buzz of activity. The semicircular table had been expanded, with additional seats accommodating 3 humans in formal diplomatic attire. Chairman Donovan gestured for Kyle and Naya to approach. "These are the individuals I mentioned," he told the diplomats. A distinguished woman with silver-streaked hair rose to greet them. "Ambassador Helena Carpenter, Earth Diplomatic Corps," she introduced herself. Her sharp eyes assessed them both with professional interest. "Your situation presents a unique opportunity." "Opportunity?" Kyle echoed skeptically. Carpenter nodded. "We've been negotiating with the Vyar High Council for months, attempting to improve relations and secure better treatment for humans in Vyar territories. Your case," she gestured to Naya, "could be instrumental." Naya's luminescent patterns dimmed noticeably. "I am Kirath," she stated flatly. "Exiled. The High Council would not acknowledge me." "That's where you're wrong," interjected one of Carpenter's aides, a young man with data screens hovering before him. "According to our intelligence, your exile has caused quite a stir among certain progressive factions within Vyar society. There are those who question the severity of your punishment." Kyle instinctively moved closer to Naya, protective. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Ambassador Carpenter's expression remained carefully neutral. "We propose that Naya testify before a joint human-Vyar commission about her treatment. Her story could help reform the more extreme cultural practices that have strained relations between our species." "You want to use her as a political tool," Kyle said, anger rising in his voice. "We want to help her regain her status while simultaneously advancing human interests," Carpenter corrected smoothly. "The Vyar High Council has agreed to consider revoking her Kirath status in exchange for human concessions on trade routes." Naya's cosmic eyes widened. "They would restore me to the clan?" "Potentially," Carpenter confirmed, "though you would likely face some restrictions." Kyle turned to Naya, searching her face. "Is that what you want? To go back?" The question hung between them, weighted with everything unspoken. Their night together, the connection they'd formed, the possibility of a future neither had dared imagine. Naya's luminescent patterns fluctuated rapidly, betraying her inner conflict. "I do not know," she admitted. "A day ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. But now..." Her eyes met Kyle's, and the patterns on her skin brightened where his hand touched her arm. The silent communication between them spoke volumes. "There is another option," Ambassador Carpenter said, watching their interaction with shrewd assessment. "Earth has been pushing for a cultural exchange program. If the Vyar agree to our terms, Naya could apply for human asylum and serve as a cultural liaison. Meaning? Kyle pressed. Meaning she could legally remain in human territory, including this settlement if the council agrees, while maintaining limited contact with her people. Not fully restored, but not Kirath either. Chairman Donovan cleared his throat. The council has voted to offer sanctuary to both of you, regardless of the diplomatic situation. This is a human settlement. We protect our own and those under their protection. The declaration sent a ripple of approval through the chamber. Even those who had initially opposed Naya's presence seemed to have softened their stance. The Vyar delegation arrives tomorrow, Ambassador Carpenter informed them. You have until then to decide your course of action. As the meeting adjourned, Kyle and Naya were shown to new quarters, larger and more comfortable than their previous room, a tacit acknowledgement of their changed status from suspicious outsiders to potential diplomatic assets. Once alone, Naya moved to the small window carved into the rock, gazing out at the bustling human settlement below. Your people surprise me, she said softly. Such fierce independence, yet such unity when threatened. Kyle joined her at the window. Humanity's greatest strength, he replied. We're stubborn as hell individually, but we stand together when it counts. Naya turned to face him, her cosmic eyes searching his. Last night changed me, she confessed. In my culture, physical union creates bonds that alter one's very essence. I feel different, connected to you in ways I cannot fully explain. Kyle gently traced the luminescent patterns on her arm, watching as they brightened at his touch. I feel it too, he admitted. Whatever you decide about tomorrow, going back to your people or staying, I'll support you. And if I choose to stay, Naya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What then? Then we figure it out together, Kyle said simply. One day at a time. Naya's luminescent patterns pulsed with an emotion Kyle was beginning to recognize as joy. She leaned into him, her forehead resting against his chest. My punishment was meant to be my end, she murmured. Instead, it became my beginning. As they stood together, contemplating the future that had seemed impossible just days ago, when Kyle had found her tied to that pillar, the luminescent patterns on Naya's skin created intricate designs that seemed to map out possibilities. Paths forward that neither had imagined possible. Tomorrow would bring the Vyar delegation and decisions that would shape both their lives. But tonight, in this moment, they had found something rare and precious in the most unlikely of circumstances, a connection that defied the boundaries of worlds. Dawn broke over the enclave, painting the stone walls with golden light. Kyle stood at the window of their quarters, watching as the diplomatic procession arrived. Sleek Vyar shuttles landing alongside the more utilitarian Earth vessels. Today would determine their future. Behind him, Naya emerged from the small bathing chamber, her silvery hair damp and her blue skin glowing with renewed health. The borrowed human clothing, modified by one of the Enclave's tailors to better fit her slender frame, complemented her alien beauty. Have you decided? Kyle asked softly. Naya joined him at the window, her cosmic eyes taking in the diplomatic activity below. Yes, she replied, her voice steady with newfound confidence. I will not meet with them directly. Kyle turned to face her, searching her expression. Are you sure? This might be your only chance to regain your status. What status? Naya asked, a hint of bitterness coloring her words. To return to a clan that would tie their own daughter to a pillar for the crime of touching another's hand? She shook her head, the luminescent patterns on her skin pulsing with determination. I have found something better here. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. The simple contact sent waves of light cascading across her blue skin, a visible manifestation of the connection they shared. Ambassador Carpenter still wants your testimony, Kyle reminded her, even if you're not there in person. And she shall have it, Naya agreed. My story deserves to be told, not for my sake, but for others who might suffer the same fate. A knock at their door announced Captain Chapman, come to escort them to the council chamber. The meeting was already underway when they arrived, the chamber now crowded with human diplomats and a delegation of VR officials. Kyle recognized the distinctive robes and elaborate head crests that marked the VR elite. Ambassador Carpenter approached them immediately. Have you made your decision? Naya straightened her shoulders, standing tall despite being surrounded by representatives of the culture that had cast her out. I will provide my testimony as a recorded statement, but I will not appear before the delegation. Carpenter nodded, unsurprised. And your future plans? I request human asylum, Naya stated firmly, and permission to remain here, in the enclave. A murmur rippled through the chamber. One of the Vyre delegates, a female with elaborate silver markings denoting high rank, stepped forward. This is most irregular, she declared, her accent making the standard language sound musical. Kirath do not simply choose new lives. Perhaps that is precisely why the practice should be reconsidered, Carpenter countered smoothly. When your exiles find more compassion among aliens than among their own kind, it suggests a fundamental flaw in your justice system. The Vyre delegate's head crest flattened in what Kyle recognized as a sign of displeasure. The girl was punished according to our laws. Her unauthorized physical contact violated sacred traditions. Physical contact? Kyle couldn't contain himself any longer. You tied her to a pillar, poisoned her, for touching someone's hand? The chamber fell silent. Kyle felt Naya's fingers tighten around his, a silent warning not to say more. Ambassador Carpenter seized the moment. This is precisely the cultural disconnect we hope to address through our exchange program. What seems barbaric to us may be traditional to you, and vice versa, but surely we can find common ground. The negotiations continued for hours, with Kyle and Naya observing from the sidelines. Naya provided her recorded testimony, a calm, factual account of her punishment that nonetheless left many of the human delegates visibly shaken. By midday, an agreement had been reached. Naya would be granted human asylum and official status as a cultural liaison. In exchange, the Vyre would permit a small human outreach center in their territory, the first step toward greater cooperation between the species. As the delegates filed out to formalize the agreement, the high-ranking Vyre female approached Naya. Up close, Kyle could see the family resemblance. The same delicate bone structure, though the older female's features were hardened by years of rigid adherence to tradition. You bring shame to our lineage, she said in their native tongue, though Kyle understood enough to recognize the condemnation. Naya's response came in clear, deliberate standard. No, mother. The shame lies with those who would torture their children in the name of tradition. The older female's head crest flattened completely. Without another word, she turned and rejoined her delegation. That was your mother? Kyle asked when they were alone again. Naya nodded, her luminescent patterns dimmed with lingering sadness. High matriarch of our clan. She led the council that sentenced me. Kyle wrapped an arm around her shoulders, offering silent support. I'm sorry. Don't be, Naya replied, her patterns gradually brightening again. In our culture, we believe that suffering shapes destiny. Perhaps my punishment was necessary. It led me here, to you. The days that followed brought rapid change. News of Naya's asylum spread through Vyre territories, inspiring others who had suffered under rigid traditions to seek human protection. A small trickle at first, then a steady stream of Vyre dissidents and exiles finding their way to human settlements. Kyle and Naya were given permanent quarters in the enclave, a small dwelling carved from the rock, with windows overlooking both the settlement and the distant city skyline. Kyle found work with the security team, his military background finally serving a purpose he could believe in. Naya became an invaluable cultural interpreter, helping newly arrived Vyre adjust to human customs while teaching humans about the complexities of Vyre society. 6 months after their arrival, they stood together on the small balcony of their home, watching the sunset paint the mining district in shades of amber and gold. I received a message today, Naya said, her cosmic eyes reflecting the fading light, from a progressive faction within my former clan. They're questioning the Kirath practice, demanding reforms. Because of you, Kyle noted with pride. Because of us, she corrected, turning to face him. What began as my punishment has become a movement. Humans and Vyre, finding common ground. The luminescent patterns on her skin had evolved over the months they'd been together, forming new configurations that seemed to incorporate elements of Kyle's tattoos, a visible symbol of their cultural blending. I never thought I'd say this, Kyle admitted, but I'm glad I took that delivery job. Naya laughed, a sound that had once been rare, but now came easily. The universe has strange ways of bringing souls together. As darkness fell over the enclave, they retreated inside their home. In the privacy of their dwelling, they shared the kind of intimacy that had once been forbidden to Naya, the physical expression of a bond that had grown stronger with each passing day. Later, as they lay entwined, Naya traced the tattoos on Kyle's chest with gentle fingers. "In my culture, there is a belief that souls can merge across lifetimes," she murmured. "Perhaps we knew each other before. Or perhaps we just got lucky," Kyle replied with a smile, capturing her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. "Luck," Naya repeated thoughtfully, her cosmic eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Another human concept I've come to appreciate." Outside their window, the lights of the enclave twinkled like earthbound stars, a testament to humanity's resilience and adaptability. And within their home, a human and a Vyar had created something unprecedented, a bridge between worlds that had begun with an act of compassion at a punishment pillar. What had started as Naya's exile had become the foundation for a new understanding between their peoples. And what had begun as Kyle's impulsive act of mercy had given him something he'd never expected to find in this harsh corner of the galaxy. A home, a purpose, and a love that transcended the boundaries of species. Sometimes, Kyle reflected as he held Naya close, the greatest adventures begin with the simplest choices, like stopping to help someone in need, even when every instinct says to walk away. Some choices, it turns out, change everything.